Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, I've got a wonderful little surprise for you. You'll see in just a second. Welcome to Step Back Tonight. Hi, I'm Tristan, your host for tonight. You guys notice anything different? I'll give you all a second. Either way, hello, my name's Tristan. I'm the host of YouTube channel Step Back History and Tristan Won't Shut Up. And I stream 2 days a week on Mondays and Tuesdays from 12 till 2 Eastern with Mia Mulder, and on Tuesdays from 7 until 9, which is just what you're watching right now. I go by he, him pronouns. You can find my work at stepbackhistory.com or tristanwon'tshutup.com. If you want to support my work, you can go to patreon.com/stepbackhistory and support for as little as 84 cents a month. So if you go with a yearly subscription, and also if you have Amazon Prime, you can actually support Step Back for free with Twitch. If you have a Amazon Prime subscription, you get one free Twitch Prime subscription every month, and you can use that on an independent streamer of your choice. I suggest you use it every month, but and maybe use it on any independent creator that you support. If you choose me, I'll be very grateful. Other things coming up is I've got videos. I got them and you want them. I released a video on Saturday about the Armenian genocide, and then I released another video today about women in the white power movement. It's been quite a ride, so that's fun. And now I'm going to go into my next video, which is sort of a lot more personal and very depressing. And that'll be probably coming out sometime, hopefully before mid-May. I'm trying to get it out around May 15th, depending upon, scheduling and stuff like that. But, I am in progress. Things are moving forward. If you want to submit questions for future streams, there's a link in the chat for you. And lastly, if there are any new people who this is their first time watching a Step Back stream, please make yourself known in the chat. We have a wonderful chat community that is very supportive, and say hello. I see literally nobody got what's new. See, what you guys used to be seeing me through is this little thing, which was fine for a $90 thing for Zoom meetings. But I finally decided to bite the bullet, and I, what's it called? I connected my Canon Rebel SL2 to my computer with this new webcam module thing that they have that Canon's released, and so I'm now using my my nice camera that I use for filming videos to record to do a stream. Hi, I'm looking at myself with the little viewfinder on the side. Besides that, it also means that hopefully my videos will be easier to make, because now all I need to do is turn on the lights and start recording, which is pretty good. So yeah, and all I needed to do to make it work was I had to buy a dummy battery pack, so now it can plug into my power bar. Who won? Lots of viewers from racism or few viewers for women? So far, they are battling it out in the marketplace of ideas. So I said in my most recent video that I have this strange alchemy based on the fact that my videos where I talk about women have a 38% decrease in the amount of views they get. And the videos where I talk about racists do very, very well. And this video is doing so there's a thing when you're a YouTuber that you obsessively check, because we are all just pathological human beings. There's this thing you check where when you release a video, you can see how many views it has and how that compares to your previous 9 videos based on how many views they had at that point since their release. And right now I'm at 4 out of 10. It's doing a little bit better than the Martin Luther King video, but it's doing quite a bit worse than the Japan's Lovable Communist Revolution. And it's doing less good than the massacre that united the far right and how the Klan, quote, continued the Vietnam War. So, but it is so far, at this point, you know, it's still early days, we'll see. But at this point, it is outperforming every single video I have recorded since I moved. So this is probably my best performing video 2021. So, or possibly the Massacre that United the Far Right. I think that might have been in 2021 as well. So I'll take it. I'm going to be sad when this series is over, because then there's going to be no more stuff to talk about. Do you think Canada should allow guns? Canada does allow guns. Do you think Toronto is the next NYC? I don't even know what you mean by that. Like, just like the next big city? I mean, it's already a big city. It's like the 3rd largest city, or the 4th largest city in North America. Somebody convicted to 2nd-degree murder with no past criminal record would get 10 to 15. The prosecution are probably going to ask that Chauvin get more because of how brutal the murder was. If that were to happen, Chauvin and his lawyer would have to prep a statement arguing for a lenient standard sentence. What do you think he's going to say in that? Look at all the times I managed to arrest black people and not murder them. I imagine they're going to say that, like, he felt like they're probably going to... Usually, if I remember, for sentencing, they usually try to talk about how remorseful they are, or how, you know, how disadvantaged they are and how they're a victim of circumstance. So probably going to go one of those routes, I would guess. I moved. Yes, I moved back in January. What's it called? Because of, actually, the same reason I was able to move is the same reason I have a camera. And that is a few years ago, my grandmother passed away and she left me some inheritance that I used for 2 things. I bought some equipment for the channel so that I could, you know, get my business off the ground. And I also put some aside to be a down payment for a house. And so my wife and I were able to scrounge enough together to actually, well, buy a house with some family help, of course. Because I am lucky. I was born in very lucky circumstances. Let me do that. And I wish more people were able to get that kind of thing. Still in Canada? Yes, I still live in Canada. I just moved I only moved like maybe 2 hours away from where I lived. I moved out of the city, basically. Or I moved to a smaller city. What are your thoughts on superhero fiction and anarchism? Alan Moore doesn't like them very much, but stories of gods, heroes, and monsters are ancient and very much part of human history. I mean, I think that there's an angle to go down, because like it's sort of like almost hacky now to be like, oh yeah, superheroes, they're nuclear bombs, they're the fascist Ubermensch, they're like all of these things, and that's why they're bad and we shouldn't have superheroes. But then I also think of things like there's a really good, what's the guy's name, Jacob Geller, I think is the name of the YouTuber, who recently made a video about the Golem as like a figure in Jewish mythology of a creature that is made like a kind of imperfect creation of man that protects vulnerable people from violence from outside, you know, from like, you know, the violence trying to impose themselves upon the Jewish community. And the story of like every time like that like, you know, the hope that you can put into like calling upon a creature like a god, or with a creature with like, you know, some benevolence that's a protector. There's value in that, and I think that you could definitely do anarchist superhero stories in that kind of a thought process. It's just that, you know, the predominant narrative is Like every Marvel movie is about how American interventionist foreign policy is good, actually, if just the right people were in charge. But I think there's other ways to take care of it. Hopefully, do I sound okay? I had to move the microphone because I don't want to get the... There's a lamp I have over here. Maybe I can move the lamp. But I wanted to get more light on my face, but if I move my... Because this is where I used to keep the microphone, and it would cause, like, a shadow. So I moved it over here. So I hope it sounds still good. Alan Moore's a comic book writer. Yeah, he wrote a lot of Swamp Thing comics. He wrote Watchmen, and he wrote V for Vendetta. So, and he is a self-described warlock. Because now he's sort of a recluse who smokes prodigious amounts of marijuana and like has grown his hair out and does magic and stuff. He's a unique feller. What's this channel about? Sorry about my confusion. I am sort of in a state of transition at the moment, but I am essentially a historian. I have dual master's degrees in American Studies, American Cultural Studies, and U.S. History. And I'm making videos about things in the world and culture and society and politics, but using the fact that I am a historian to approach it. So it's going to be a lot of examples from the past, a lot of analysis of history, that kind of stuff. That's like the long short end of what the channel's all about. Now, the first video that's going to sort of get into that sort of space is coming out soon. But I've got lots of history videos that you can check out. They're very fun. Just looking at my... There's a thing. So maybe we can take like a little tour of Step Back's analytics. I don't know if you guys will find this interesting at all. Probably not. But it's my stream, so I can do what I want. Don't worry about it. But... Okay, let me just find what I'm looking for. There's a thing that you can look at, a tool that lets you look at your audience and sort of what other things that they're interested in. And I think I have a pretty, I'm always like, why is Step Back not really growing all that well? What is the problem? Why is it that, compared to all of my friends, like most recently, Jose passed Step Back in subscribers. And not that I don't like Jose. Jose is an extremely talented YouTuber and he deserves all the success that he's getting. But every time these happen, every time a new YouTuber comes onto the scene and grows in a big way and passes Step Back, I'm always just like, so what is it what did Tristan do wrong? What did I do? What's causing me to be like the tortoise of this YouTube sphere? And so I have been looking around and thinking about what it is that what makes people come to my channel, What makes people want to watch a Step Back video? And the first things that I could think of are maybe look at my audience and see what kind of channels my audience is interested in to see what kinds of things that they are clicking on. And you know what I found? It's not Kings and Generals. It's not Atunshai. It's not Mr. Beat. It's not Alternate History Hub or Knowledge Hub. No hubs at all. I'll tell you who it is. It's Thought Slime, Renegade Cut, The V Word, Some More News, Hassan Abi, Secular Talk, The Majority Report, Philosophy Tube, The Surf Times, Bow of the Fifth Column, Second Thought. Oh, there's Alternate History Hub. Actually, I was wrong then. Okay. Jim Sterling, Sarah Zed, and Scaredy Cats. So that is the channels that my audience seem to be very subscribed to. So that makes me think that what is an education channel to do in such a space where the audience is this audience that's somewhat engaged with the content you're making are going to learn about video games or fandoms or different political stories. And I'm realizing that as an educator, I really am doing the hook, the hook and content different. And so I'm like, who's the educational channel on this list? And you know who's the educational channel on this list? It's Philosophy Tube. And Philosophy Tube, like if Abby was making videos the same way that Step Back made videos, she would be like epistemology, and she'd make a video about how epistemology describes epistemology is like. It would just be like the video about epistemology, and just try to make the sexiest title and thumbnail for just the epistemology video. And then at the very end, in like the last 10 seconds, talk about how it's related to something that's going on right now. And that's obviously the wrong way to approach things. So I was doing it exactly backwards, and I need to be talking about a relevant topic and bringing the history to that conversation, rather than I'm going to make a video about a history topic and bring modern day examples to the thing. I hope that makes sense. It's a bit like, a reverse-y type thing. But people typically don't think they like history. So if they see a video by Step Back History about history, they're going to think, oh, this is history. I don't like history. I'm not going to watch this. I'm not going to click on that and watch that thing. So instead, I'm going to make a video from Step Back, about a topic that is, on people's minds, and then bring the history to the conversation. Like, for example, my next video, the one I'm working on right now, is about best go to acting class. I would like to do that. When I can see people again, I would like to do stuff like take some improv classes, take some acting classes, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's definitely a thing I need to work on. I need to be a little bit more energetic. I need to be more of a character like Jim Sterling, or a bit more out there and do you know what I'm talking about. Although not all the time. Like Leon from Renegade Cut is not exactly like chewing the scenery, but his stuff's still really good still. Anyways. So my next video is about capitalism, political economy, and loneliness, and how capitalism and the relentless profit motive moves us towards a more and more atomized and lonely society. And I'm going to take some historical approaches to that and all that kind of stuff. So like that's like an example of like the kind of work I'm going to be doing in the future. Hopefully that all makes sense, because a lot of people who would like history don't think they like history, because history has been, look at history channels on this platform. They're almost all white dudes. I went to a educational conference for educational YouTubers, and the history section was literally all white guys and what's her name from Vintage Space. That was literally the entire cohort, and their politics ranged from right-wing libertarian to moderate progressive, and then there was just me, who's always the weirdo in these conversations. So I'm working on my kind of reimagining of my content, and I think that I think making videos about topics that people care about first and showing why history is interesting to bring to that is going to be the way to do it. If you guys are interested, also, they have a list of videos that Step Back viewers are also watching. So if you haven't seen these, then you can check them out. I won't mention any V-word channels because I don't promote people who don't do research. But anyway, isn't Kingston Generals pretty left-leaning? At least one of its creators is pretty left-leaning. It's Kingston Generals is like a team of people. It's like 2 main creators and a whole bunch of contract workers. So, but one of those 2 main creators is, he's pretty lefty, yeah. Now I want to see vintage space / Step Back crossover. Well, I did meet her once, and that would be very fun. I will say about that is that who would be like, who that would absolutely blow away, because Vintage Space is my dad's favorite YouTube channel. So I have a feeling that if I were to ever do a crossover with Amy and Vintage Space, I might kill my father. He's 64 years old. You never know what could kill a 64-year-old man. And I want to make sure that he lives to at least 69, because nice. But then, I don't know if he could handle his son doing a video with his favorite YouTuber. I took a selfie with her at that event, and my dad freaked out. So, just like how, oh man, there are so many like adorable stories about my mom and my YouTube channel. So many. I've talked about these before, but they're always like, so like, I don't know if you guys know, but like my mom is a really big supporter of Step Back. She loves what I'm doing. She thinks it's really great. My mom's a really big history fan. They have always been extremely like cool with everything that I'm doing. The only time she's ever gotten mad at me is when I said all cops are bastards in a video. But either way, because she's a boomer, and that's what boomers do. So, yeah, the most recent one that I can tell you about is that when I released the Armenian genocide video on Saturday, my mom sent me, or my mom and my dad both messaged me super excited because they were like, I bet your video is going to get a lot of views. Did you know that Joe Biden just said that he recognized the Armenian genocide today? What a coincidence. Your video is going to do so well. And I was just like, yeah, Mom, it's Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day. But is my dad a big space fan? Yeah, I'll get into that. The other thing is that my mom is, or my mom also, there was this April Fool's joke that Thought Slime made like years ago. Like I think this was like 2018 or something like that. He made a April Fool's Day Thought Slime video that was him roasting me. Like it was like him doing like a video response to one of my videos, pretending to be like a chud. And my mom saw it and she was like, I was so mad. I was almost going to send him a message about how mad I was that you made fun of my son's content. And everyone was just like, oh my God. Because she did not get that it was a joke at all. And on top of that, didn't think about what day of the year it was or anything like that. But also, even when we explained that it was a joke, that it was indeed an April Fool's joke, and that, Matt's a very good friend of mine and all that kind of stuff, she was still mad for like a year because she kept forgetting that we told her it was a joke. And she just kept remembering and she just kept remembering it and being mad before anything else. So that would be the thing. That would be and yeah, someone said my dad is is my dad a big space fan? Yes. My dad is a huge nerd. He's been watching Star Trek since 1966. He watches almost exclusively science fiction shows. He raised me on Star Trek. He watches lots and lots. Like he basically just watches TV. That's his only hobby right now. Where he just watches science fiction. And whenever we meet up, we're always just talking about science fiction, and we're always recommending each other shows. He recommends it to me because my dad watches a lot more TV than I do. So like, he loves it. And like my dad, like I said, he started watching Star Trek in the 60s. So he was one of those like, like boomer dads of a certain age. Like my dad's version of like World War II, encyclopedic knowledge about World War II, is like the Apollo program. Because like my dad was growing up, it was when like, the Apollo program was going on and the space race was happening. And so he one of his only childhood memories that he still recalls is watching the moon landing live on TV. So that's like my dad's like big, like he loved it. He was so so and I grew up with like a really strong interest. Like we went to Florida to do like Disney World and stuff like that when I was like a little kid, like when I was like 4, and we went to Kennedy Space Center as part of it. So I've seen Kennedy Space Center at least once, and anytime we go somewhere where space stuff can happen or science-y stuff can happen, we did it. Like we went to the American Southwest once on a road trip, and we had to go to one of the places that we had to stop in Roswell. We spent the night in Roswell, New Mexico, but we also went to what's it called, Los Alamos, where they have a museum about the Manhattan Project, and he wanted to show me that and like that kind of stuff. So yeah, I grew up with those parents. Does my dad have any good sci-fi recommendations? My dad's favorite shows right now that are like currently on the air, he watches Discovery. He likes everything that all the CBS Star Trek. He's liking. He likes that, all of that. The other show that he has been really liking is The Expanse. He likes The Expanse. And there's another show. I haven't watched it yet, but he's recommended it several times, and I'm probably going to watch it at some point. And it's an alternate history show about the space race, where like the Soviets beat the Americans to the moon, and so the United States and the USSR have like just dumped shit tons of money into the space race, and it's now modern day, and like they're colonizing Mars and shit. That's all I really know about the series. I haven't watched it. It's on my like list of things to watch someday, but it's like a thing that I will eventually get to. Right now I'm kind of working my way through The Man in the High Castle. But yeah, I also haven't talked to my dad a whole lot because my dad and I aren't really the kind of people who do phone calls. We've just started having a bit more conversations on WhatsApp, but like I usually only talk to my dad whenever I'd see him in person. And I don't know if you've heard about this, but there's this COVID-19 thing going around that has meant that I've only really been able to see him sparingly through the last year, so I don't really know what he's been up to. What do I think of The Man in the High Castle? I'm lukewarm on it. I remember specifically not liking the novel. I tried to read the Philip K. Dick novel, and I didn't like it very much, mostly because it is one of the worst offenders of what I think is the issue with all alternate history fiction, which was the real big issue with alternate history fiction, which is that they are so enamored by the history, like the alternate history that they developed, that they forget that stories are supposed to have characters and plots, and usually a good one is supposed to say something about the human condition, and you're supposed to get something out of it. Stories aren't just characters and plots and setting. It's like, there's like a bigger thing that comes out of it. And almost all alternate history that I've read, they are so enamored by, they're like a dungeon master that releases like 100 pages of setting lore before their first character has even set foot in the setting, Like, it's somebody who spent a lot of time thinking through the history, and they want you to know all the time they spent thinking through the history. And it makes the verisimilitude of it go away so much, because like, I'm just getting a history textbook here. And they forget that, like, stories are supposed to be interesting, and they're supposed to have human connections and things like that. As for where I am on the show, where are you in The Man in the High Castle? I'm in season 2. I'm watching, I think I'm like partway through season 2. I think the last episode I watched was episode 6. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but it's an episode where one character is in Germany, one character is in another dimension. I guess that's just season 2. But yeah, it is what it is. The show the show is better than the book. I know that's like sacrilege to say, but the show is better than the book because it actually like gives two shits about its characters, and its world building is incidental instead of like them just being like, they're just like, oh, these two people are going to randomly have a conversation for 10 minutes about the state of Japanese politics in like 1961. It's like, okay, there was a scene like that in the book that I was like, that was instantly where I put it down, where they were just having this long conversation about basically Empire of Japan history in the last decade. And I was just like, you know what? This is not a story I want to read. So I'm going to put that away. But the book or the show can't do that. You can't, like, alternate history TV, you can't just have them just blurt out tons of lore, you know? I hate books that are just Wikipedia articles that happen to have page count, you know? So it keeps the serious lore to a minimum, but it has a very high attention to detail for subtle world building. And I like that a lot. I like the way that it conveys the alternate history without, you know, forgetting to tell a story. The problem, in my mind, is there's two major problems with the show. One is sort of, it's a victim of the time that it was made. And two is we'll get into it. The main problem of The Man in the High Castle is that it's prestige TV in the age of streaming platforms, and it's a streaming original. And I've had a growing frustration with streaming original shows for this particular reason, and that is that they're boring. Nothing happens in them ever. They're padded out, they're overly long, they make scenes that don't go anywhere. Every episode is just connective tissue from one episode to the next, because they're trying to maximize on session watch time. So they're trying to get you to binge watch the whole season at once, which means that unlike, you know, in episodic television or like, you know, back on like, you know, cable and stuff like that, you have to break for commercials like every 15, 20 minutes or more often than that, like maybe about every 10 minutes, which means that you have to, something has to keep happening, you know? There has to be act breaks. There has to be like cliffhangers, and like the story has more punch. And in order for you to say, wow, that's a good show, you have to have a strong, cohesive story in its like allotted time slot. So, you know, you watch a show from the 90s and you're like, I got 5 acts, you know, I got a 5-act story that has a satisfying ending at the end, because they don't know if you're going to come back for the next episode because of syndication and all sorts of other things. So you have to finish the story in the episode. You get a satisfying full thing, and it has a regular beat pattern. Great. Good way to set up a show. Prestige TV and the streaming platform, where you need to, where they're trying to get you to watch a whole 10-hour season as fast as possible. Or, you know, they want you to stick for the whole thing. Every episode has, like, no single episode has a point to it. There's no episode of, like, The Man in the High Castle. But this is true of this is true of a lot of the Netflix originals, true of a lot of shows, where every episode is sort of like, I'm trying to think of, like, another type of media that did something like this. The only thing I can think of is, like, The Wheel of Time. Not a book series I recommend, by the way, for this reason as well. And that is, you can have an entire episode, an entire hour of television where nothing happens, because you're just interlacing between like 14 different storylines that are probably not going to come together until like the end of season 4 or whatever. And so you're getting like 14 different stories that each one of them only gets like a handful of scenes every episode. So these stories are like glacially slowly moving. And there's no acts. There's no real structure to an episode. The only thing that usually happens on a prestige TV show is they'll have some big dramatic cliffhanger right at the end of the episode, the last scene of the episode, so that when the credits start playing and the little like continue watching thing starts filling, you're like, oh, I gotta see what happens next. But like 30 minutes into the 50-minute episode, you don't know what the fuck's going on. And then it all comes out at once, and then like a year later when you go to watch the new season, you don't know anything about what's happening. You have lost the plot completely, because the way that this works compared to our, you know, very episodic memory, we don't remember anything. We don't remember what happened. We don't remember any plots. There's no memorable episodes, like nothing. And this is true of like every single prestige stream TV show. Because of the medium, they just don't have interesting, like it's just written in a way that I'm not super into, because I don't really like binge session. I have ADHD, first of all, so it's really hard for me to pay attention to these shows, but I also don't like binge session watching TV shows. Like, I'm not a person who sits and watches 10 episodes of a TV show. I'm not. I watch like one episode of a show every 3 or 4 days. And anytime I watch these shows, it's like, wow, I let that all wash over me. Now I'm going to completely forget everything that happened because it was all just these long, drawn-out episodes. This is why a lot of people talked about how like the Netflix Marvel shows always felt like nothing was happening until like the last 2 episodes. Because they're like, oh shit, we got to tell a story. The other thing, though, and this sort of is a thing that would have been okay if it was on a more episodic show, but it compounds because of the streaming session, which is that I've called The Man in the High Castle television on hard mode, because here are the hardest stories to tell in an effective and understandable fashion. Spy stories, because they're complex stories about multiple different things. There's lies, there's people with multiple aliases, there's subterfuge, there's tension that you might not pick up, and very often there's supposed to be a lot of plot driven through subtle things. 2, alternate history. Alternate history fiction is difficult to convey in proper storytelling format because you can't draw upon your own historical knowledge of a period, because things are notably different. So you have to, in many ways, try to tell a story in a period where the history is very different, and that means the world is drastically changed, but you can't do it. You have to do it in a way that doesn't like just bore you down with lore. 3rd is political dramas, because political dramas are just multiple different factions with different interests and lots of stuff going on. And The Man in the High Castle is literally all 3 of those at the same time, in a show that is in a format that makes it very hard to follow the plot and follow along. And so I found myself constantly watching this show and being like, I have no idea what's going on. Who is this person? What is their name? What is the significance of what's going on? And where do we go from here? And the other thing, too, is now they're throwing in season 2, they're throwing in, like, alternate dimensions where they're going back to our time. And there's no, like, visual indicator about where you are on one or the other. You just have to know from context. And so you're like, okay, is this the real world? Or is this the world, the fascist world? Who is this person? What is it that they want to do? What's their name? But their real name, not the alias they're going by right now. And what is their motivation? And so, like, every episode is just so confusing. And on top of that, you'll have scenes where the only purpose of that scene is they did something in a previous scene, and now they have another thing they have to do in the next scene, but that's in the next episode. So they just have to put a scene here to remind you that this plot thread is happening. And you're like, okay, I don't understand. This is just drawing out time in an episode. Shouldn't this episode be about something? And so, like, that sort of... that was my really long rant about The Man in the High Castle. Is Doug Ford... Oh, boy. Okay, let me try to come down from that whole thing. Whew. Like, instantly, I'm like, let's just go to the next thing, but... yeah. Is Doug Ford the worst premier of Ontario ever? He's definitely up there. He's definitely very incompetent. And I don't know if Ontario has been through at least in recent memory, has been through a crisis quite such as this. The last time would have been the Spanish flu. But during the Spanish flu, we actually, that was back in the day when government could still actually do things. So I don't know how it worked during the Spanish flu. I don't know what the Ontario government did. Is Doug Ford the crack one? No, that's his brother, who is dead, actually. Hey, John Barlich, thank you for the $2 super chat. How do you think Biden's first 100 days went? Well, color me underwhelmed. That's my answer. I feel like it could have been done better. Like, you could have done anything. Maybe not have, children in prisons is the thing. Thank you, J-Lord, for the super chat. Tough question. If you were alive during a capitalist revolution against feudalism, the bourgeois rebels are aristocratic establishment. I mean, a lot of socialists were part of the bourgeois revolutions. They just, it was after the revolutions were over when all of that stuff about freedom and equality never seemed to turn into things that they could, pay their bills with or feed their children with. That they got disaffected. And that's why you have, like, the Paris Commune and stuff. It's my opinion on our history memes and Islamic history memes. I don't know very much about it. Thoughts on Eric Larson? I have never heard that name before. It's like Frieza fight drama. Yeah. I think a TV show works better when you start with everyone starts together until things start to get stale, then split and follow individual stories for a while. Yeah, that could work. But then, like, the thing is, like, a lot of TV shows will do that where they're all split up and then every episode is just continuing a plot thread, where I would rather if they made their episodes where, like, every individual character's story is one episode that focuses on them, and then they sort of come together at the end of the season. But then you might have a point where you could stop watching Netflix, and they don't want you to do that. You would really hate For All Mankind? Oh boy. For All Mankind, the show your dad is watching is good, but I think Reagan would cut the space program's budget no matter what unless there was a solid financial incentive to keep going into space. Do you agree? Probably. I don't know. I don't know what Ronald Reagan, in the world where the space race is happening, where he goes politically. Wish some prestige TV show was able to carry the story pacing of Deep Space Nine. Yeah. Or, you know what's a good TV show that really carries that... There's Battlestar Galactica. The reboot of Battlestar Galactica was sort of like in this weird place where they were going through the transition from, like, more episodic TV to, like, this kind of prestige, like, binge TV thing. And Battlestar Galactica had a pretty good habit of being able to have the big story, and then every season had sort of like a middle story. And then every like 3 or 4 episodes would also have its own kind of arc about what's going on. But then every episode itself would also have something going on. And I was like, okay, so you could watch just an episode of Battlestar Galactica and get at least a good, like, a solid, compelling chapter of a story. But, like, today it's just like they just forgot how to... They've pretty much... I think, like, in many ways they cut, like, streaming TV shows like they're 10-hour movies. And they kind of forget that, like, each hour should have, like, its own encapsulated thing. Do you also need subtitles in every show because you get distracted and miss the dialogue? Yes. Yes. ADHD freaking... that's an ADHD life hack right there. Watch all of your TV shows with subtitles because you're getting your information in more than one way, and it's a way to actually pay attention to what you're watching. It took 6 seasons to get to the Dominion War, and it was mostly able to keep it a present storyline in all 6 seasons before it. Yeah. Deep Space Nine's a fucking masterclass in serialized storytelling. And it's why, like, no show is as memorable as Deep Space Nine ever since. Because, like, the show is so... It mastered being able to tell a big story while also giving you a lot of small, very human stories that are great and explore different ideas, and you get lots of episodes to spend time with the characters. Like, the thing about a lot of prestige shows now is that their seasons are also only like 10 episodes, and they're all so serialized that they're all just part of one big story, which means you get like 0 time to feel any sort of affinity or connection to the characters. While, like, a more episodic show, you get episodes that just focus on one character for the full time. You get episodes where, you get episodes where the whole cast plays baseball. Like, there's all sorts of different stuff that I thought was beautiful. And I loved I don't know. Deep Space Nine is like the best TV show. Ignore the TV show. Have you read A Song of Ice and Fire? Yes, I have read all those books. They're good. They're good. They're sort of they're rather long-winded. They're definitely a marathon, but I enjoyed them. They were compelling. Sometimes he gets caught up his ass on these things too. Like George R. R. Martin has like, I remember there was like a chapter of one of the Song of Ice and Fire novels that was like the entire chapter was describing the heraldry of all of the minor houses of the oh god, what's that region that the Lannisters are from? Not the Stormlands. I don't remember what it's called. I don't remember what Lannister's like home territory is called. What's BSG? Battlestar Galactica. But like, it's a scene where like they literally describe every minor house of the Lannisters and what their heraldry is. Casterly Rock, the Westerlands. That's the word I was looking for. So, and it was just like, why did this chapter exist? Is this going to be? And it didn't end up being meaningful at all. Just say no to too much lore is the thing. So I'm glad they ended up Series 4. They were able to end somewhat on a high note, and it wasn't drawn out longer than needed, yeah. Watching the Trade Minister experience at Twinkie was very funny, though. Yes, that was when what's it called? When Trade Minister Tagomi is the best character on The Man in the High Castle, and I am almost exclusively watching it because of him. First of all, it's the actor who, I don't know if you know this, but it's the actor who played Shang Tsung in the like 1990s the old Mortal Kombat movie. And I just like, he just has such like a impressive frown, and he just plays that character so great. And I'm just like, I love Trade Minister Tagomi, and I wish only, even though he's part of like a great nationalist fascist empire that is like, you know, oppressing people around the world, I still wish Trade Minister Tagomi a very pleasant evening. And yeah, just that is I he's so good. He's like he's like hands down. He's a memorable character that I actually like care about him and figure out what's going on. Because like, he's got a good story. His wife is dead, and then he's like kind of into I Ching because that's cool. And like it's like, okay, this is a character. This is a character I can understand. I like him. What do you think the GOP establishment figures are going to say when the inevitable get asked if Caitlyn Jenner's campaign support Caitlyn Jenner's campaign in the interviews? Ooh. Good question. Very good question. I have a feeling that the Republican establishment is going to, like, ever so slightly support her, and then, but like the base is going to utterly reject her. I feel like the multiverse aspect does sort of help things make sense in later seasons, but yeah, it does require folks paying attention and assuming they remember the details. Yeah, it's a tough show. It's definitely like a hard show. Do you bring oatmeal raisin cookies to D&D meetups with Matt? I haven't seen Matt since March of 2020. So, but we used to always, what's it called? There were two snacks. So I had a rule at my table because Matt's a vegan, and I wanted, I want everybody to feel welcome at my table. So I gave people initiative, or I gave people a point of inspiration if they brought a snack to our games. And I gave them 2 if they brought a vegan snack. Because I didn't want, like, I not only didn't want, like, Matt to have, like, nothing that he could snack on, but, like, I wanted him to have options. Because I thought it was, like, it was a nice thing to do. And there was this popcorn from the dollar store that is vegan and very good. And Oreos. Because Oreos are vegan. Were you there when Garfield Eats happened? Yeah. I ate the Garfield Eats. I got sick. It was, what's it called? We ordered the Garfield Eats to my apartment. Game of Thrones did that, and that's how we know it ended. Did the remake of Battlestar Galactica have a season where they went back in time to fight Nazis? No. Then watch the original. Oh boy. Would I be interested in making a video on the Paris Commune? I already did. I did it in 2019, I want to say. The fact that last season was kind of crappy, yeah. Does D Space Nine have Hot Spring episodes? They're Hot Spring episodes in D Space Nine are called Ryza episodes. Because D Space Nine is an anime, yes. As a historian with ADHD, do you have any kind of method to focus or learn effectively when studying? Yeah, when I'm reading, I typically do it in shifts. I sometimes will use audio books, or I've gotten used to text-to-speech programs if I need it. But in many ways, my way of trying to focus is just knowing that I only have a limited time to really focus on something, and to give myself more time than most other people need to read something if it's really dense and really tough. Have you heard of Netflix shows Dark or the OA? No. Shows like the miniseries Chernobyl are a good format for historical dramatizations. Yeah, Chernobyl, that was really good. Chernobyl's a really good series. It's got some, problematic anti-communist stuff in it, but overall still pretty good. The show lost me with the Umber betrayal. They would never turn on the Starks. Also, would you support a bourgeois rebellion against the Starks, or White Harbor merchants against the Manderleys? Oh boy, this is some deep Westerosi lore that I completely forgot. I would definitely lead the peasant revolt against the Starks, though, yes. In the year 406, the Romes defeated the Goths and resettled their families at Hop Topic. This really annoyed native Italians. I mean, they're Goths. They can be very... They're playing their punk music all hours of the night, wearing their weird clothes. Sometimes they got spikes, And later, a new imperial regime attempted to gain political control by ordering all the Goths in Italy to be killed. If you went back in time, do you think you'd find people talking about the Goths the same type of dehumanizing language that tends to precede modern genocides? Or is that kind of propaganda a product of modern ideas about race and nation states? No, there's definitely going to be dehumanizing language. I mean, if I remember correctly, Romans thought, a lot of times, people who they didn't really know very well in, non-parts of Rome, they didn't even think were human. They didn't even think about that. They thought they had, mouths on their stomach. It was a different time. It was literally a billion years ago. What's the most lore-heavy story I've ever read or watched? It's probably the Song of Ice and Fire series. That's the one that comes to mind. I mean, Star Trek's pretty lore-heavy, but, you don't need to know Star Trek lore to enjoy a Star Trek episode. So, I don't know if that counts. Are you worried about future space colonies, potential government with potential feudalism? Oh, yeah. It's almost definitely going to happen. Yeah, Caitlyn Jenner's running for governor of California in... there's going to be a recall race for Gavin Newsom. And so now the Democrats are going to tell us all to support Gavin Newsom, a person who's let, thousands of Californians die because he refused to do the important things that need to get done, and the only other option is going to be fucking Caitlyn Jenner, who supported Ted Cruz in 2016. Garfield knows where Tristan lives. Oh, God. I just know he loathes raisins. This is... Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. I forgot he doesn't like it. If you were making money, would you make more money? Would you be less concerned about changing to be more appealing? No. This is not only like me changing my content to be more appealing, but it's also me changing my content to be more like more in line with the kind of stuff, my interests these days. Like, I kind of made step back in 2015 when there really wasn't BreadTube, you know? YouTube in general was mostly like, politics on YouTube was mostly like the anti-SJW people. And so when I made step back, I was more following along with like straight up education YouTube. I was trying to do like a CGP Grey explainer type thing. But the platform's changed, and there's a lot more room, and I've always been like a very like hard left person. And so I'm really grateful that I can talk about this stuff in today's climate and not have it like hurt like it would have been in the past. Do I take meds? You don't have to answer if you don't feel it's appropriate. Oh, no, I don't take meds. I don't have, I should be on meds, but because of, being fat, I can't take them because basically when you're taking ADHD medication, it's an amphetamine. And so, they're worried about my blood pressure, so they don't want to give me Adderall or anything like that. Do I support space colonization? I mean, I think it's how space colonization happens is a very big part of whether I support it. I definitely think that there is positive aspects to us offsetting more of our industrial capacity into space. That's for sure. But there could be, there's just capitalism reproducing itself. Just more, like, we're not like solving the problems of a finite universe. Like, yeah, we're having the issue of you can't have infinite growth on a finite planet. Well, you can't have infinite growth in a finite universe. And just opening up the universe to more primitive accumulation just feels like it's not a solution to a lot of our deep-seated problems. Why does your video do worse when it's about women? My guess is that there's a segment of my audience that just finds topics about that like less appealing. There's like, the thing is, like, there's only a handful of topics when I'm talking about history specifically that that people are like ready and interested in watching, and unfortunately I talk about them a lot. But some topics like there's a lot of coding that like women's history is less interesting and like women's history is less dramatic and big and crazy, and so it doesn't make for as compelling stories. I disagree, but it means that fewer people click on it, and when fewer people click on it, YouTube thinks, oh, people don't like this one as much, so we're going to recommend it to fewer people, and there's sort of like a feedback loop. I would love... Someone said, wouldn't it be funny if Scott Bakula came back as Archer in a future Star Trek? I would love that. Enterprise was bad, but it wasn't like that bad. Like, it wasn't like Star Wars prequels bad. Like, it had some like decent episodes, and having Archer come back for like a cameo would it would get me doing the doing the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV thing. And like, Scott Bakula wasn't a bad actor. Jonathan Archer wasn't a bad character. He was just kind of uninteresting. Were the sea people really rebelling peasants? I mean, it was thousands of years ago, so I can't say anything for sure, but it's a pretty compelling theory. Why exactly is she a Republican? Because she's rich. Are there any socialists running for California governor? I don't know. I think the race only became official today, so I don't really know. Isn't Caitlyn Jenner trans? Yes, she is. Does your dad actually think about the political messages in the science fiction he watches? Probably not. My dad is baby. He doesn't really think too much about politics. He doesn't really think too much about, like, you know, big, like, worldly topics. And I don't blame him for it. He's a much happier person than I am as a result, so. He's interested. He's a curious person, but he's curious more about, like, he's curious about science and history, and, like, he's less of somebody who, like, he doesn't make himself miserable about day-to-day politics. I will defend my dad. My dad is, like, one of my best friends. Thank you, J Lord. There are islands in Australian waters that were uninhabited before colonization of the Cocos Islands, tiny islands, and the one there before colonization. Is that kind of colonialism okay? I mean, I guess, but also, you know, there is also the fact that those islands were occupied by its natural denizens, and humans showing up to an island is basically results in the complete ecological breakdown of the biosphere there. I don't know if we need to be putting people in every corner of the planet. What do you think about users acting like politicians on the Mr. Beat Discord server? I don't know much about the Mr. Beat Discord server. I posted once what's going on there. I thought everything about it was so fucking confusing. I was absolutely like confused about what was going on. It's an absolute rat's nest in there, and I don't know anything about the I just randomly get messages from people who are tattling on each other because I'm apparently a mod on the Mr. Beat Discord server. But every time I post on there, it's just like all sorts of weird random bunch of people with names like George Bush, and I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just gonna walk away now. Do I support ACAB? Fuck yeah, I support ACAB. I support abolishing all police. All of them. Forever. Kudos you got so far without meds. Yeah, I have done a lot of work, especially since about 2014. 2014 was about the year I started trying to get my ADHD under control. And I have done, like, the last 7 years or so, I have completely transformed my life to make my life work with my ADHD. And I mean, so far I'm like reasonably productive, so I guess it works. Isn't the universe infinite? I mean, it doesn't have infinite resources. Do you think we'll end up finding microscopic life in our solar system in the future? How do you think humanity will react if we do? It's possible we'll find microscopic life in our solar system. I actually think that if life exists in our solar system, most of it's going to be microscopic, and if we're gonna find it, we'll probably find it in some places. That'd be interesting. It would say a lot about astrobiology and stuff. Honestly, though, this is my weird take, and honestly, I don't know how you're gonna react. But I do think that if we discovered evidence of alien life, the idea that it would bring us all together and it would solve all of our, we would all be shocked to find out that we're not alone in the universe, would not happen. It would be a news story for sure for maybe like a couple days. It would be a slow story because there'd be like, scientists think that they don't have an explanation for this, and they'll be like, new studies show that they might think that this is life, and then there will be an announcement by NASA being like, it's life, guys, look, it's got a face and everything. And then there would be like a full news cycle about it. The president would say something, and then there would be a bunch of all the science YouTubers would make YouTube videos about it, and eventually it would die down, and within 2 or 3 weeks we'd be moving on to the next thing. I don't actually think that it would be a big story for all that long, especially because most alien life that we're going to discover is going to be either pond scum, or if it's intelligent, it's going to be so far away that we would never be able to communicate with them reasonably in our lifetime. Wasn't the last season of Enterprise where it got good? Yeah, season 4 of Enterprise was a solid show. Can you send Supersat chats over Twitch? No. Their version of super chats is you use those what's it called, bits. Watch Pamphleteer's video about the sea people. I did. Can you recommend any other left-wing YouTube channels that does streams and talk about the latest news in which you like their views? Yeah, watch the Surfs. I don't think that's much. That's one that needs a lot of recommendations. But go on Twitch and watch the Surfs. Lance is a really good content creator, and his stuff is good. If you want like daily news content, he's the guy. Haven't been at Chaffle Wobble. Love your new videos, Tristan. Thank you, Jiffy. Do I like Isaac Arthur? Yeah, I like Isaac Arthur. What's it called? I had him in one of my videos once, and he did a stream with me. It was really fun. I've been getting into speculative evolution lately, particularly this idea of introducing Earth animals to alien planets with no complex animals of their own. Would it be wrong if we actually had the opportunity to do it? I don't know. Probably. I don't really want to fuck up other biospheres. If we abolish police, who will enforce private property relations? Yeah, for real. What about crime, though? Wouldn't we get rid of police, increase crime? Personally, defending and retaining is better. No, there's no saving the police. There was a police strike in like the 1980s, and it resulted in crime going down. Like, police don't really deal with crime. Not really. They very rarely ever do. And the only time that they really, like, they'll come in and like fill out a form and then do literally nothing else. The kinds of times where they actually can do something, they're going to bring in detectives. And I'm like, I'm down for the existence of detectives, but you don't need those you don't need those, going up and down the street and beating up black people. Or other times they intervene, a social worker would be a much better person to put in that situation because it's usually a mental health crisis. So, no. And plus also saying, oh, how do you control antisocial activity? Well, we definitely better take the most antisocial people in the world and give them guns. That's the way to solve it. It's such a failure of imagination. There are so many other ways that we can manage our world that don't involve arming the the most terrible people in society. I don't want to be insensitive, but I was diagnosed with ADD as a kid and later found out I had leaky gut and celiac disease. These may be worth looking into. Oh boy. What do you think creationists will say if we find I don't want to take that away. I've heard that like gut issues are associated with autism, but I've never heard it with ADHD. What do you think creationists will say if we find complex life on other planets? They would say they don't believe in it. They'd say it's a hoax. But there's not that many creationists left, I don't think. Do you have some tips for a fellow ADDer? I managed to fail upward most of my life, but every day feels like ADD is getting more and more ground. A couple points I could say. ADHD is a disease that fights your executive function, which means that in order to get things done, you have to make getting started as easy as possible and always have a thing to remind you on what is the thing that you need to be working on. So I have a pretty strong and really sophisticated task management system on my computer and my phone called My Life Organized that I use primarily for managing different parts of my life at all times. And I also I break everything down into the absolute smallest category of tasks so that even if it's something stupid and small and easy, I can at least say I'm moving forward. And the thing about ADHD is that once you actually get started working on something, it starts to build on itself. It's the getting started that's the thing, and you really need to make that as easy as possible. Hence, this camera situation. I'm recording on my on my digital camera, and I'm setting it up so that this will be like my set. So all I need to do is turn on my lights and start filming, because I was having a lot of trouble filming videos because getting set up would be like a whole ordeal, and I would just fight doing that all day long. But doing it like this, where I can just turn on, set up, and go, is a much better option for me. And because of that, hopefully in the future, I'll be able to do more takes and like more approaches and like those kinds of things, because I can record the video. I can do more and more repeats of everything, so that I'm more and more comfortable with the way that everything is working, which makes me happy, because very often I think that the weakest part of Step Back videos right now is my filming. My videos don't look very good, and my presentation skills are kind of so getting some work done on that would be good. Thank you for the $5 super chat. What about nations that are not America, where deaths by police don't happen, or police don't even carry guns? There isn't a country where police deaths don't happen. They still harass people. They still disproportionately harass people of color. They still violently repress, because I don't know of a place where police officers who are unarmed don't still have fucking batons and tasers. And very often they serve very little function more than being the violent arm of the state, where, I don't think the state should have a violent arm, because I don't think there should be states, really. Do you think it'd be better for the environment to shove all the people into one super ultra city and leave the 99% of the land untouched? I mean, that would be the optimal solution for the environment. I know that would be kind of miserable situation, and it would have us all being very dependent on one part of the earth being very stable. But it would I definitely am like, I'm almost the kind of person who's like, we should all just live in orbital habitats and just leave the earth alone. Would you be in favor of an anarchist revolution if for some freak reason for 10 years after everything we bake could only contain spelt and water, and every music we had was white guys in their early 20s with acoustic guitars taking themselves too seriously? Yes. Have I watched the series Snowpiercer? No. I bet the implications would have more impact beyond initial discovery. We saw in the Renaissance people tried to wage a massive revolution against the church because they believed in exoplanets. Maybe. I just have a feeling that our news cycle, our attention to those kinds of things would move on too fast. There would definitely be stories, but like the idea of it having like national attention forever or for a long time, it would fade away very quickly. Who do you think are the best science YouTubers out there? Ooh. Who am I liking these days? Who am I watching in science YouTube? I like Tom Scott a lot. Tom Scott is a very good YouTuber. His videos are always very compelling, and I'm down to push his stuff. So are there science YouTubers? I don't watch as much science YouTube as I used to. SciShow still occasionally has a good topic. If it has a good topic, I'll watch it. But a lot of my favorite YouTubers that do science aren't making videos anymore. Like, I don't think I've seen a Draw Curiosity video in a long time. And Kurzgesagt's good, but it's like, everybody watches Kurzgesagt, so it's like hardly a recommendation. So you were talking about something like if we found shellfish on Europa, but what if we started receiving transmissions from a long dead civilization on the other side of the galaxy? That's something we might actually, that might be a big fucking deal. But I have a feeling that most likely there's two scenarios that we're probably going to discover alien life. It's either going to be, one, we're going to find undeniable biosignature either in our solar system or near it, like on one of these exoplanets. So it's going to be some sign of biological chemistry. We'll send a probe there that it'll, by the time it gets there, several years will have passed, so we probably won't be thinking about it anymore, and we'll get some evidence that there's like, little fungi or something floating around. The second is that if we find some sort of intelligent biosignature on a planet from like, you know, something like, I don't know, what's the new version of Kepler? What's the new exoplanet finding telescope? If that thing found like a planet that had like signs of pollution or like signs of like, you know, of like intelligent stuff, they'd be like, all right, we found intelligent life. We're pretty sure. We're going to send a message. It'll get there in the, you know, 37th century. And then it'll be, you know, another, you know, 1,000-something years for it to get back. Be excited. My dad was a detective for half his career. Does that mean that he wasn't totally useless? I guess, yeah. So do you like sheriffs? I mean, sheriffs have a lot of power with very little accountability is the problem. Do you think we'll be able to reach the singularity or not? I don't think the singularity and capitalism will be able to happen at the same time, is the thing. You can't find a way to make singularity technology profitable, so I don't think it's going to happen at this point. Unless we get a massive social change. I'm not an anarchist. I'm a social democrat, but I enjoy your videos. I have heard anarchists say they're not against leaders. How does that work? Anarchists are against unjust hierarchies. Their philosophical basis is basically that if some sort of coercive hierarchy or hierarchy in general exists, it has to be able to justify itself, or it should be replaced with a more horizontal or democratic organization. Like, anarchists aren't against the idea that like anarchists aren't against like the coercive hierarchy of like grabbing a toddler to stop them from walking into traffic, you know. And very often like leaders, not so much as like commanders, but as like organizers or faces, are useful for certain things. But you don't need to have a state, like you can have leadership and government and organization without needing to have a singular monolithic organization with a military and a police force that you are a member of because you were born into it. They control you. They tell you what to do. You're not allowed to leave. You're not allowed to opt out. And if you don't follow their rules, they have given themselves the right to use violence to put you down. You don't need those kinds of organizations. Do I support prison abolition? What would you replace them with? Rehabilitation centers, restorative justice programs where every time somebody commits a crime, you get the affected parties together and you work out what sort of thing would fix the situation. Because, you know, every crime is a policy failure, so figuring out what went wrong and those kinds of things. Are there countries where the police don't carry guns? Yes. Yeah, there are. Should College Board be abolished? And if yes, what would you replace AP classes and college admission process? This is very in the weeds of the American college system, so I don't really know too much about it. But there's much bigger, more fundamental, deeper issues with the way that America works than just AP classes. Which are worse, tankies or ANCAPs? Oh, ANCAPs, for sure. How would you farm food? On farms. Are you talking about everybody living in a big city, or on a habitat? Theoretically, you would have farms on the habitat. If everybody lived in like a megalopolis, you'd have like automated farms that are sort of in the like around the city that would feed the place. There aren't that many creationists left. Do you mean in the U.S. or the whole world? I'm pretty sure a lot of the American far right are still creationists. We just don't worry about that. Well, the thing is that, like, the creationists in America are like the religious right, and the religious right have diminished quite a bit as a force in America lately. And also, it's changed. It's like a lot of the belief in creationism has changed quite a bit. Like when I was a kid, more than 50% of Americans were creationists, but now it's much lower. I don't think your presentation skills are bad. Your videos feel very natural, not most overly dramatized stuff you find you do. Well, thank you. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm saying it's like the weakest part of my channel at the moment. And it's the thing that I'm kind of putting more attention to try and improve at the moment. Have you watched the Every Tom Scott video? I have not. What language would you like to learn? Arabic. Yeah, if I could get like somebody, if I could get like somebody to like touch my brain and I just instantly knew Arabic, yeah. What if we have the real life warp engine when the discovery happens? Well, that might change things because like, this is like, I don't know if anyone else has been following the news, but faster than light travel in the last like 6 months because of some like theoretical physics work that's been done became a lot less impossible than it was a year ago. There's been some real big moves forward on the development of Alcubierre warp drive theory, like the way that theoretical physicists have talked about it, that it might be possible to actually build an Alcubierre warp drive without having to invent new types of energy that don't exist in our current physical model. So that could be interesting. I think it would still require a preposterous amount of energy, but one impossible thing at a time. Doesn't hierarchy try to justify itself? Very few governments just say I rule because I have guns, don't they? Well, yes, but the thing is, like, an anarchist would say, if a hierarchy doesn't need to just like it needs to be considered absolutely necessary, and if not, it should be dismantled. And if you can find a way to organize society that's better than the system that you have now, and it's more or it's less hierarchical and less coercive, then the system that exists in place is therefore unjust and should be dismantled and replaced with the better system. What is the right reaction to finding out there's intelligent life on another planet? I mean, it won't change the material conditions here, so why should it change anything? Precisely. I think that, like, in many ways, we're just like in our, like, science fiction has, like, hyped up the discovery of intelligent life to be that like the reception of it would be a way bigger deal than it is what I'm saying. Don't you think neoliberal capitalism would end ever? I think it's possible. Depends upon. There's a lot of, like, the thing is, like, the socialist idea that, like, capitalism is inevitably going to turn into socialism once, like, things hit a sort of, the contradictions in capitalism sort of crash into each other. But honestly, there's going to be a point where automation is going to really undermine the sort of Marxist analysis of economics, where the proletariat class we might get to a point where the labor to make society function may not require a proletariat class to function, in which case there is no value to the proletariat class. And the idea of like, what's it called, just getting rid of, like, once there's no need for workers, then the capitalists will start killing them. They'll find ways to kill them en masse. You already have, like, really rich people complaining about overpopulation. Like, if we can find a way where we're automating, where all manual labor, all work is automated away, then the hyper rich will definitely stop caring about human life, and they'll be like, all right, we don't need workers anymore. And they got all the drones and guns and bombs and stuff, so they might be able to just, eradicate the working class and just have their robot society. What do you think finding evidence on life on another planet would do to science fiction? That's a good question. I don't know. You can never anticipate those kinds of things. Has Bobby Duke ever tried to be your manager? Who's Bobby Duke? Is this a reference to something? I just can't imagine how a country cannot be a state. If separate small communes make rules, would that not be a mini-state, if albeit a weak one? No. The main things about the state is that they consider themselves to have the legitimate, the monopoly on the legitimate use of force, and two, they are non-voluntary. You don't contractually join. Like if you made a commune, like communes today, you have to sign a contract to join them before you you get in. Like it needs to be voluntary. That's the big point. If you design an education system with a school, what would it be like? Be much more focused on giving kids free time to socialize with each other and build their social skills. School would also, like a lot of the lecturing and stuff like that would be replaced with, there's like essential skills that you need. But for the most part, school would be much more focused on group projects and getting kids to follow their own curiosity to different projects and things. And basically you graduate when you feel like you are ready to move on to another phase of your life and you have completed the base requisite skills that you need to move on to whatever it is you're doing. And I would argue that it would never be a thing that is permanent. Like you would always be coming back for phases if you feel like it. If you want to learn new skills or do something. It might be a smaller part of your life, but it would never go away. What are your thoughts on floating cities, habitats in the ocean? Do you think that's possible or do you think that's unrealistic? I think technologically it's possible. It's just, do we really want to impose? Like, we've already fucked up the ocean so bad. Do we really want to live on them too? And send all of our shit into there? Like, you have to think about it like how humans basically destroy any environment we move into. That's my anti-colonization thing. Even if there's no humans, any place we move into has an environment that we will just destroy. And expanding people into the oceans is like, okay, I guess we're just going to destroy the oceans more than we already are. How would an anarchistic military work? Just asking because military stuff is my special interest. Take a look at what the anarchist partisans in Spain did during the Spanish Civil War. They had democracy at the platoon or at the squad level. They coordinated a lot of because anarchists there wouldn't be the anarchist army or anything like that. It would be very much small mutual aid based self-defense and resistance and insurgent type cell groups. And mostly their focus would be on staying on guard for when if anybody tries to, recreate hierarchies, try to because the thing is our brains it's very obvious our brains are very our brains seem to demagogues and authoritarians, and so I think that even if we lived in an anarchist world, we would have to constantly be on guard to make sure that no tin pot dictator ever tries to remake fascism, Greece just hired 2,000 officers to make a police team for policing universities. Gross. I don't even know what the. I don't even know. Like God, that's bad. Bad is the answer. What are your thoughts? What's your view in that? It's bad. First of all, it's more police. More police is more bad. But also, I don't know why they need to be on universities. They're gonna like stop. They're gonna try to like make sure Ben Shapiro's allowed to talk or some shit. Are you an ANPAS? If not, what are your views on anarchists using violence? I think that violence should, like, I have pacifist views. I have gone on the record to say that I'm a pacifist in the past. And I do think that there is, I think that in many ways we don't acknowledge just how much damage we do when we decide we're going to commit to violence. And I do think that, like, a vanguard revolution is just not the path towards, like, meaningful change. And that if there is going to be a need for violence, it's going to be more in community self-defense and countering fascism and things like that. Those are like the main things we'd focused on. Thank you for the super chat. Being a multimillionaire does not make you an elite. There's a gap between the 1% and the 0.0001%. Okay. The elite is when you're rich enough that you can control the levers of power. And, you know, there's a lot of millionaires that... Multimillionaires are still pieces of shit that have way more money than they're stealing labor from somebody, because nobody does that, like, what's it called? Nobody does that much work. Nobody can do that much work. What would happen if automation happens in a socialist society? Well, hopefully, it would move towards anti-work stuff. Like, if we have automation, if automation replaces manual labor in a socialist economy, then you would have less labor that needs to get done so that people can have more free time to just kind of vibe and have fun, play Xbox, smoke weed, make YouTube videos. The idea of changing conditions. What if Bruno argued during the Euro Renaissance when he was over to the church? Here's a fun hypothetical. What if we somehow get into contact with another civilization and they're like, wait, you guys are still doing the capital accumulation thing? We haven't done that since before we abandoned valve-based technology. Go valve-based technology. Go valves. I mean, we'd be like, tell you so. Told you so. Told you about the valves. How does one post-mass automation capitalism work if you've killed all the consumers? Good question. I just think that I think that it would, what would be after that would not be capitalism anymore. It would just be a sort of like be a sort of reverse revolution, I guess would be the term. And there would probably still be like hyper competition just to like, because like people are already making way more money than they need. But yeah, if there's no consumer base, I don't know. I think there'd be definitely some issues. Step back confirmed and prim. I mean, I'm not an Ann Prim by any means, but I feel like I'm more sympathetic to Ann Prims than most people are. Which I'm not, but like a lot of people who get into anarcho-primitivism get into like weird, like, you know, ableist shit, which I don't like. What are my thoughts on accelerationism? Typically, the people who advocate for accelerationism are not the people whose lives would get worse by accelerating. That's what I typically find. Would capitalism with robot workers finally make it stable? Whew, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it would still be... I feel like not, because the things that we choose to produce is not done through a logical means. And so there would still be overproduction and overcorrections that would cause instability. Any chance North America joins up like the EU when refugees start migrating north? No. I see much the opposite happening. God. I see more borders becoming more militarized and like kind of having fortress politics of like, we're going to build walls along our border and make sure nobody gets in. And you're going to have more of like that kind of like fascist thinking, like no immigrants, keep the immigrants out. But yeah. Do you guys remember back in the day? I feel like this is like a conspiracy theory that is completely dried up at this point, but there was a conspiracy theory prominent like maybe in like the early Obama years that they were all getting ready to make the North American Union that was going to have a single currency called the Amero. And they were saying this is really bad for some reason. And that like right-wing conspiracy theorists were like really, really into this this theory. And it seems to have gone away at this point. What would happen if a socialist or communist alien society made contact with Earth under capitalism? Until capitalism? I don't know. Good question. Good science fiction short story if anyone wants to write it. How would America become a dictatorship, like an actual dictatorship? I mean, I think America came as close to a dictatorship as it was going to get during the Trump years. You get a president who manages to gin up a certain part of the American population fed by resentment and using race in order to divide the working class. You then end up with an election where maybe, like, there could have totally have been a coup, and if Joe Biden's election wasn't so decisive last year, that Capitol insurrection might have been a lot bigger, and that could have resulted in an overthrow of the government. And then I don't know what happens at that point. I'm a good visual presentation of the progressive movement. I'm guessing that's saying my ideas are bad because I'm fat. I'm guessing that's what you're saying there, Dan V. Cool. Good on you. That's some. I've never heard that before. I've never heard that I am a physically unpleasant person to look at. That has never been a thing that has ever happened to me before. It's weird. It's weird. The first I'm hearing about it. I certainly didn't hear about that every day of my childhood and all through university. You have to come with some better shit than that. Get some better material. How would an anarchist society address issues regarding nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction? Not having them. Getting rid of them. Dismantling them. Whatever. Me being fat is what got me is what's getting me my what's it called? My vaccine in 3 weeks. So came through once. What if the elite kill the working class and their descendants establish what amounts to fully automated luxury communism amongst themselves? I genuinely think that's a possibility. I mean, maybe, but also that's on the graves of billions, which is not a thing I would definitely. It's quite a small silver lining for a pretty bad thing happening. What are the chances that capitalism's a great filter? Ooh, spooky. I mean, it's possible. I don't know. I don't know if capitalism, like, I don't know if I'm like, as like, this is the science of Marxism Leninism, like all economies will go through this exact process on every planet, is as, you know, like, I feel like, because like capitalism needed colonization to happen and slavery. Like, without slavery and colonization, you really wouldn't have had capitalism. So, because capitalism was basically the ideology that was built up to justify slavery and colonization of indigenous people. So, without that, they would be kind of empty on like I don't know. Capitalism, I think, needed very specific historical things to happen. I don't think it'll happen everywhere. What's the worst right-wing conspiracy theory you ever heard? I mean, I think it's Holocaust deniers. I think they're the worst. There's no there's some conspiracy, like, what's it called? There's perfectly reasonable people who believe in stupid conspiracy theories. Or not reasonable, but like nice people. Like, there's perfectly nice people who are like 9/11 truthers and shit. Like, okay, fine. But there's like Holocaust denier? No, fuck them. It's all right. Guy just wrote, my being here proves that YouTube recommendation algorithm aren't very good. It's like, okay, that's fine. That's why I'm banning you. There you go. You don't have to deal with me anymore. You never have to see me again. It's good stuff. QAnon's also pretty bad, yeah. Get swole, become Canadian Vegeta. Oh, man. I definitely am, like, turning more into Vegeta from, like, the eyebrows up. Was Karl Marx an environmentalist? Oh, no, not at all. Can capitalism function without consumers? I mean, no. It's one of the internal contradictions of capitalism, right? Whenever somebody says Trump 2024, we should respond with, but you guys think he already had 2 terms. I guess. Oh. I don't think Trump supporters very much believe in democracy or the rule of law in general, so I don't think that would really be a good comeback. You say that you're against the state. Well, how do you handle all of the devil super weapons that the state have made? If the state's so bad, then why super weapons, doomsday devices? Like, I don't think the fact that the state makes weapons that are capable of destroying the planet multiple times over is like a super great case for why the state is good. Do you think we'll ever be able to obtain teleportation? I don't think that technology feels like it's very far off, and it definitely wouldn't work the way that Star Trek does it. There is some like kind of concepts about like quantum teleportation, but it's very limited, and I think that there's some issues with information cohesion and stuff. So I don't know. I don't think so. I think transporters are a lot further off than a lot of other technologies in Star Trek. According to classical Marxism, ancient economies were built around slavery. Slaves only made up a third of the population in Greece. How could they have been driving the force of the economy? I mean, it depends upon how much labor hours they did, really. What's the funniest conspiracy theory? Definitely the David Icke reptile people one. It's also, like, super anti-Semitic, but, like, the fact that, like, there are people who genuinely believe that all of the elites are fucking reptiles from Planet X or something like that. It just feels like a 1950s movie. Whew. Guess I should actually look at this question thing I have. Are Star Trek characters killed and cloned every time they use a transporter? Basically. But then again, if you use, the thing is, like, that's the transporter paradox, but if you use the transporter paradox to it, you bring it to its conclusion, then, like, technically you die every time you fall asleep, or every time you go under anesthetic. Like, the transporter paradox is not, like, like it's like, you know, ideal wise it's interesting, but also when you really think about it, a lot of time, like when you really think about it, it's there's a lot of cases where those kinds of things happen. What sort of changes would have happened if the Haudenosaunee Confederacy had found a way to industrialize before Europeans arrived? Do you think things like their Constitution of Great Law of Peace, of the world's oldest democratic institution, and their matriarchal leadership would be developed in industrial society? Possibly. I don't know if it might not have, but it could have. But really, to do industrialization, you need colonization really to have an industrial revolution. You need to have cheap labor from slaves on the other side of the planet to make industrialization happen. That's why industrialization developed with colonization, because all those European societies turned into dependent slave economies, and that, you know, as they ended that sort of relation, they started, like, you know, moving more towards service economies and stuff like that. So I don't know if a Haudenosaunee Confederacy would actually industrialize. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to not industrialize. YouTube's an interesting place. How often do I stream? I stream 2 times a week. I stream on Monday afternoons and Tuesday nights. Would I say Blade Runner is an accurate path that capitalism's leading to? To some extent. Monk. And I don't know if I don't know if the replicant thing is gonna be a thing, but the sort of cyberpunk dystopia, sure. I don't get how being deatomized and being knocked out are similar. Well, if considering, like, the end of your consciousness ending, stopping, and restarting, if that is considered death, which, like, you know, if you take the transporter paradox and you think about it, that's basically like the thing that's really the big difference. Then a lot of times, like, anytime you lose consciousness, it is some form of death. Because otherwise, like, it's all the same. Like, it can, like, being deatomized, like, I don't know, like, if you take a car apart and put it back together, you know it's the same car, right? Like, if you were to make a perfect copy of a person, it's like, with all the same atoms, it's the same thing. So the real issue is, like, the discontinuity of consciousness, which is a different thing. How long have I streamed? I'm new to the channel. Well, welcome aboard, first of all. I think I've been streaming since... God. 2018? I think I've been streaming now for almost 3 years. God. Oh, God. What have I done? But there wasn't a time when my neural substrate stopped existing. I mean, theoretically, I guess. I mean, if you were ever put under general anesthetic, your neural substrate stopped functioning. And if your brain was completely deatomized and put back together while you were under general anesthetic, there'd be functionally no difference. Yeah, Awesome Sauce has the right answer. Consciousness is basically an illusion. And getting, like, preoccupied about the about things like the transporter paradox is buying into a sort of, like, idea that of the homunculus that's not really, like, the more we learn about it, the more it's like it's not really a thing. Besides, we're, like, slowly deatomizing ourselves all the time. Like, every 7 years, all of the molecules in your body are replaced, so in many ways you do get transported very slowly. If you're saying there's a 1 second delay in the transport, then it would change the answer. I don't think so. Like if it tears you apart and then puts you back together with all the same atoms, it's the same thing. Am I my brain cells and their communications or signals passing through them? You're both, and more than that, because there's like a reasonably good belief that, like, even if we were just brains in a jar, we wouldn't be ourselves anymore, because we're sort of like coming to the conclusion that our bodies are a big part of who we are as well, and that it's possible if we were able to, like, you know, do the full connectome thing, right? Like, we were able to upload our brains without our bodies, that it could be that, like, we are completely incompatible. Like, there's no, like, our brains and our bodies are kind of like undetachable in a way, and that our brains wouldn't work the same if we didn't have the body that we have now. Because we are bodies. We are flesh monkeys. I guess monkeys are flesh monkeys too. We are ape. We are monkey. It's another technology that I'm not convinced we're going to get to in my lifetime, is like mind uploading and stuff like that. I feel like that's a lot further off than science fiction and Ray Kurzweil seem to think it is. Our brains are like literally the most complicated machines in the universe, and we still don't quite know how they work. And yet, yeah, here we are. I just got the ultimate. I'm going to take a picture of this. I got these two comments in the Twitch chat that are like the dualism of Step Back, which is machine people are people too, and we must return to monkey. I'm going to tweet that, because that is that's gold. The two genders of Step Back fans. Oh my, we're almost at 9 o'clock. Holy crap. This time just flew by. Civilization the most complex thing in the universe, do you agree? I guess, yeah, because it's got brains, and brains are the most complex machines that we know of. Warp speed seems like it's definitely impossible. Do you agree or disagree? Actually, Brandon, I disagree. There's been some... I was talking about this a little bit earlier in the stream, too. There is, like... been some real big changes when it comes to warp speed lately. Some physicists have... so there's the Alcubierre warp drive, which was developed by a Mexican... what's it called? A Mexican theoretical physicist. And it used to be thought of as just like a weird... like a thing that was impossible because it required something called negative energy. But a new... piece has come out that showed that the Alcubierre engine, like, which sort of like doesn't move faster than light because it like it stretches and compresses the space around it instead of moving to move faster than light. Now no longer needs negative energy, so it is now physically possible. But it requires basically like it requires us having the ability to create a black hole, if I remember correctly. There's a chance of ending capitalism before tech makes humans obsolete. I mean, if there's anything, I'm a historian, and if there's anything I know about history, it's that there's a lot of things that seem like they're impossible right up until they happen. So I'm always open to be surprised. Oh. These are the kinds of things that Google, that having like I do like weird things, like I make a Google alert for Alcubierre Drive just to see what kind of like articles are being written about it. So I always get brought up to date on like what's going on in weird AI research and like all sorts of stuff. So like, man, the fact that you can now download the entire like neural connectome of a nematode, and like they've put the nematode connectome inside robots and the robot moves like a worm. Like, oh my god, so weird. It's so weird that's a thing that we've been able to do. Yeah. So, you know, just so you know, Awesome Sauce, I'm ending the stream at 9 o'clock, so we only got a couple minutes. Thoughts on Christian socialism? Makes sense to me. If you, what's it called? If you were, actually, I'm just using this as a prop because I just happen to have it here for research I'm doing for a secret project. But this is a Bible. This is a Bible right here. My wife used to go to a Christian college because she's a former Christian, and this is like a scholar's Bible, you know, like it's hardcore, and this is like, what's it called? There's this guy in this book who really seems to hate rich people and really wants us to all share the wealth, and really thinks that, you know, it's easier for something of eye of a needle than a rich man to enter heaven. So, as I say, I don't know. I have a feeling that the biggest thing is that it's weird. Like, I don't think it's possible to be a Christian and not be a socialist is the thing. That's the real answer. I want to get a CRISPR set to design my own pet. Oh boy. Alrighty. How are we doing on time? Got about a minute, so I'm gonna go and start looking for someone to raid. Who's streaming right now? Who's good? Got some of my real life friends. Got Riley Grace. Oh no, we got raid Lumiru. Lumiru is so good, and they're playing Stardew Valley. That sounds super chill. That sounds fun. This is like a really science fiction heavy one. This is way less doomer than I usually get, which is nice. Must be the new camera. Must be because I look so pretty on camera now. So let us let's get rating on Lumi. Lumi. Let's find a thing. But yeah, I'll be back next week. Friends, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Be good. Be well. And I will see you all on Monday. Cheers. Oh, this is awkward. We still have a few more seconds. Bye.